106.5 FM and online. It's the After 5 Guest with Wynne Thomas.
And turn off my After 5 guest today, that is Anthony Stephen Malone, author of 3 books called Honour Bound. Anthony, thanks for your company this afternoon.
Thank you for having me on your show, Wayne.
So, let's start the army days. When you joined the army, did you go straight into the paras?
Yes, I joined the parachute regiment, 4th Battalion Parachute Regiment in 1988 when I was 17.
And so what followed then was 30 years of experience in operations across trouble spots of the world. Can you give us a feeling of some of them spots you were in?
I'm very fortunate to have had quite a long career, both in the military and the intelligence community and the private sector. I went in the paras when I was 17 years old, served in 4 para, then I served in 3 para.
Yeah.
Then I left the British Armed Forces, and I became a embedded combat photographer for 101st Airborne Division, which is the American Airborne. After that, I ended up being a intelligence asset for the Central Intelligence Agency in Afghanistan.
Right, okay. And counter-terrorism, home and away, yes. Was that part of your job as well?
Pretty much so, yeah. Yeah. I was involved in quite a lot of security operations. One of the main ones being I spent 3 years undercover for the CIA in prison in Afghanistan, infiltrating the terrorist network out there, the Haqqani, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, and helping to feed information back and stop terrorist attacks both in Afghanistan on British soldiers and in the United Kingdom as well.
Oh, right, okay. So doing all this, these events abroad, did you ever take enemy gunfire?
I got shot at upon occasion. Yes, okay. I think a lot of people did out there.
And MI6 turned down a report that you submitted on suicide bombers. What is that all about?
Yeah, we were very, very fortunate with the help from a Member of Parliament, Colonel Bob Stewart, that we were able to get a report back to England, and that was a report on 8 suicide bombers originally that turned out to be 12 that were en route from the Middle East that were coming into England. That report was handed to Colonel Bob Stewart and the Chief of Staff of the British military. Then they were able to put something in place, and the result was none of the suicide bombers were able to complete any of them missions in England.
And these were to bomb shops and theatres and things like that, was it, yes?
Yeah, the targets that they were going for were Premiership football clubs, children's schools, and obviously the some of the main locations, 10 Downing Street and the Houses of Parliament.
So this was all from connections you'd gained undercover, was it that you found out all this information?
That was right, yes. I spent quite a lot of time inside the networks, and I was able to spend nearly 3 years 24/7 with a gentleman called Salahuddin. Salahuddin is now the head of the Haqqani network, and he is the head of operations for the Taliban in Afghanistan.
Right.
And Salahuddin's father, before he died, was the senior mentor of Osama bin Laden as well.
The books then, you've done 3 books there, Honour Bound. What do we find in the books? What would be in there?
In my books, Honour Bound, Rogue Warrior, Part 1 and 2, you'll find a good overview and a good synopsis of all the work I was doing and everything I was involved in, from my early times in the British Army, in the Parachute Regiment, then going on into the Middle East, time with 101st Airborne Division. I met a gentleman then whose name was General David Petraeus. David then went on to be the director of the American Central Intelligence Agency. And I also speak a lot about when I was undercover for the CIA in prison in Afghanistan. It'll be very interesting. It's not an action book. That's not what it was written for. It's a very detailed account of my time spent while I was working to keep this country safe.
And I believe, is it book number 3 is really a photo book? Is that right? There's a lot of photos in there?
Yep, I've also done a photography book, Honor Bound Road Warrior, the photography collection, and they were my photographs of a lot of the events that I was present at throughout the Middle East and Afghanistan. And I also managed to do a little bit of work for the United Nations in helping to get humanitarian supplies to a children's orphanage. So a lot of the photographs in my photography book are actually of the children in Iraq that we were able to help as well.
So two questions come to me there, Anthony. One is, are you sort of breaking the Official Secrets Act in some of the stuff you say in the books? And two, are you frightened of people coming back at you from the Taliban for what you actually say in the books as well about them?
No, I haven't broken anything of the Official Secrets Act. I've been very careful in what I have actually said. My OPSEC is I always take great care with that. I wasn't working for the British establishment. I was working for the Central Intelligence Agency, which is obviously the Americans. And the Americans have been immensely supportive in me speaking out and releasing my books as well.
What about some come back from any terrorist organisations that might want to get at you now?
No, well, at the end of the day, everyone's got to be very careful. I keep where I actually am under wraps anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only person who used to be involved in these kind of operations that has gone public. The reason why I've gone public with quite a lot is for people to learn from my experiences, and hopefully government officials will also learn from my experience, both good and bad, and they can use it as a reference point in the future.
Now, you spent 2 years, 9 months in a Kabul prison for bribing an official. Was that undercover stuff, or was that something else?
Yeah, everything we did in Afghanistan, it was cover stories on top of cover stories, and that was put into place. So I was able to be infiltrated into maximum security into the particular block where over 50 Al-Qaeda and Taliban commanders were being housed.
Right, I see, okay. And so that was a real tough place to be, wasn't it? I mean, your life was in probably danger quite a lot there, was it?
Well, it wasn't meant to be for the amount of time it was. It was only a 3-month task.
Yes.
I ended up being there nearly 3
years, yeah.
In the end, because we found a active suicide bombing network being ran from inside the prison.
Wow.
And the British military had a lot of our soldiers in Helmand at that time. So, and that was being run by a gentleman called Taliban, who ran the suicide bombing network for the Akani network and the Taliban in Helmand. They also ran a lot of operations against 101st Airborne Division in eastern Afghanistan. So my small task, where I was meant to just to find a little bit of information out, as a bit of a fluke, I ended up being right in the heart of a lot of their operations.
So did they know you were a Brit then, did they?
Yep, they knew I was a Brit, but my cover story was pretty watertight.
Right.
So it took about a year to be able to infiltrate properly, and the Americans have already contacted the British after this and said Anthony actually didn't do anything wrong. He was working for us, and his actions have actually saved a lot of British soldiers.
Right, okay. So how are you? So when you're in prison like that, How do you actually get that information out to people outside? How do you actually feed that out to them?
That would be a bit of a trade
okay.
secret. We managed to put a couple of things in place. It wasn't uncommon. This is going to sound really strange, but I had a satellite telephone while I was in there, and I had multiple cell phones as well.
Right, okay. Now, I think you returned to the UK in 2010. Now, I got a story here which you originally fled the UK in 2007 after a conviction for a possible GBH charge. Is that true? Can you tell us about that?
No, I can't. Some of that is actually ongoing at this moment in time because I didn't flee the country. I left the country with the Afghan Defence Attaché, Muslim Higher, and I went to an official meeting. And we were met by the Vice President's motorcade of Afghanistan. So that point you've just made is not true.
But what about the conviction, possible conviction for a grievous bodily harm?
The allegations in England, I was recruited by the British Special Branch when I got brought back to England and asked to infiltrate the prison system in England.
Right, okay.
Because there was a suicide recruiting cell operating in a particular prison in England.
And that was your cover story, was it?
Into that prison, yes.
So that was the cover story to get into prison, was it? All right, okay.
Yeah, because I've been in prison in Afghanistan, it gave me a lot of credibility when I was brought back here. So the British Special Branch actually recruited me.
Right, okay. And I've seen some photos of that magnificent beard you had when you were in jail in Kabul.
My beard, I had to look the part. I had to literally take on the entire part. I actually ended up I was brought on board by Salahuddin himself personally, and he ended up being one of his lieutenants. So my credibility within the Afghani Taliban was quite high. So when I came back to England, we knew it wasn't something I wanted to actually do, but in the prison systems in England, there is a big problem with radical Islam. And there was a big problem at that time in radical Islam recruiting inside one particular jail in England. Then when these guys were released, they were going straight over to Syria and they were joining ISIS.
Right, okay. So when you came out of Kabul, then you just sort of disappeared. They didn't sort of wonder where you'd gone. You just sort of disappeared, did you?
Yeah, I kind of went off the radar. The cover story was I was officially renditioned, the first person in history to a British national to be renditioned from Afghanistan back to England to face X, Y, and Z. And then that gave me the credibility to infiltrate one of the terrorist networks, one of the cells operating. We got a very good result on that. We were able to close that particular recruiting cell down.
Now you started a news channel for veterans, I suppose, affected people of warfare, and mentally and physically. Yes, is that right?
Yes, it is. I'm actually the head of Patriots, which is an organisation that looks after our former soldiers and all service personnel that are suffering from PTSD and who have also been homeless. One of the interesting points that came out with my cover story was the British establishment officially released that I had never served in the British Army, which was quite interesting when they had to be put right about a lot, because I'm actually a fifth-generation soldier. And the parachute regiment is quite a small community. So if I hadn't served in the British Army, I wouldn't be invited to all the reunions. I actually managed to when I was in the battalion, the parachute regiment, I actually done an operational tour of an island as well.
And of course, you've done various voluntary work as well. I mean, we first met for the All Call Science charity single, didn't we? That was the first time we ever met, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did. We first met when I put together, the idea was And it was just an idea at that point. Get a load of veterans, children and supporters into a recording studio, and then we can record little charity record. And that is now, it's expanded into what we now call Patriot.
Yeah.
And Patriot's doing a lot of recording. And during the COVID crisis, my little organisation is able to drop food hampers and food boxes and supplies to veteran families in need across England.
That's right, yeah. And of course, we worked with Christine Osborne on that one as well, didn't we? Yeah.
Yep, we worked with the Forces Sweetheart, Kirsten Osborne, and Tasker, the country and western singer from America.
But anyway, what I'd like to do is thank you very much. It's been an incredibly interesting interview. Thanks so much for being my After Five guest today.
Wayne, thank you for having me on your show as well, okay, mate?
No problem at all. And one day I hope we're going to meet again in face-to-face, mate, when you get all this COVID stuff out the way, okay?
We will definitely have to meet for coffee. Okay? Thank you for having me on your show.
Thanks so much.